What's up? It's your boy Kevin to Turnt on this motherfucking YouTube shit. Wow, what the fuck?
What's up? It's your boy Kevin on YouTube shit. Hey man, say man, we are lit, eh? Limited to my turn. Today, motherfucking day. Straight here outside, big crip in the gang shit outside shit, man. Free power time, free Congo, Russia do your thing, Congo, and Texas stand the fuck up. Each day is gonna be a better version of yourself. Never let somebody bring that out your back. Never let somebody tell you who you are, but also never put yourself in the position of belong. Let's stay humble. It's your revolution on the loop. Keep your right first. Coming to the Black Hebrew Israelite as a real Jew. We out here. Alright. Boom. Today's motherfucking day. Show you outside. Big crip in it. Gang show you outside shit, man. Gang. Go turn. Alright, gang. Bruh. So, man. The thing about, man, the rap industry, man, is the female rap artist. You know, we fuck with the female rap artists. I feel like they have done a lot, you know what I'm saying, as far as rapping and doing their little 1-2 in the industry. But the thing is, man, it's I feel like sometimes it's hard for female rappers to keep that buzz around their name. Like, you know, we got Nicki, we got Cardi, you know, we got Megan, we got all these other rappers. You get what I'm saying? Mulatto. You dig? And got the young rappers. You know, they all young, to be honest, but you get what I'm saying? The new rappers. And sometimes it's hard to keep that buzz going, especially when, you know, you got these other rappers who got their game solidified in the game. They can do whatever. They rap is solidified. So we got Sexyy Red and Ice Spice. Man, I fuck with both of these hoes. You know what I'm saying? I feel like, man, they did a substantial part in this game. I was thinking, man, are they gonna be a one-hit wonder, or are they gonna keep that heat going? You know what I'm saying? Both these girls, man, people feel like they industry plants. They both popped up out of nowhere and became lit. But they both had people in the game before them who helped them get on. So, you know, we look into what's going on with Sexyy Red, and, you know, Ice Spice just came out with a new song of the big guy, SpongeBob song, Big Pants. Hey, this shit getting crazy, man. Hope y'all enjoy it, and let's turn up. Yes, sir, ski. Thank God, Yahweh, we out here, man. Hey, shout out to Blackie Speaks. Man, what's going on with Sexyy Red, man? I actually fuck with Sexyy Red. I thought that she kept it real. You know, a lot of black community say, oh, she doing this and this and that. I think a lot of them be haters because they're not in the position. You know what I'm saying? But hey, hopefully we get some more on Sexyy Red. And this going to be by Ice Spice 3. So we're going to talk about both of them.
Now, Sexyy Red, just over a year ago, was one of the most popular new female rappers in the entire industry. After receiving a massive marketing push, it really looked like she was unstoppable. But now,
I see some beat that she got into
might have failed
with Finesse 2 times. This video is kind of old.
Sexyy Red is a 27-year-old rapper from St. Louis, Missouri, broke into the mainstream back in late 2023 after her song Pound Town went viral. After the success of that record, she later secured a remix with Nicki Minaj. And that same year, Drake featured her on his album. From there, it looked like nothing could stop Sexyy Red. Her music was everywhere. She was trending nonstop. She became the new face of a certain kind of female rap energy, raw, unapologetic, and in your face. However, during her rise, we saw a lot of what I would call dysfunctional behavior. Something I actually dove into in my 30-minute documentary last year, The Dysfunction of Sexyy Red. Among many things, we had situations like the teacher incident. Back in November 2023, a young ballet teacher went viral after expressing frustration about her students singing along to one of Sexyy Red's most explicit songs, which was, of course, Pound Town.
Your 5-year-old daughters are asking to listen to Pound Town.
Your daughters, your 5-year-old daughters are asking you to talking about Sexyy Red, but you're not talking about nothing else that happening in this world, bro. What the government be doing, and understands what it's like growing up as a young girl herself. Now, she was simply pointing out the negative influence that songs like that could have on young kids. But instead of reflecting on something which was pretty fair criticism, Sexyy Red brushed it off, replying, "Girl, shut the hell up and play my song." And that moment right there said a lot, because the dysfunction wasn't in just what she said. It was in her complete inability to recognize her music, while profitable, is also inappropriate for the children who idolize all this stuff that be happening in this world. I think the last thing they need to be worried about is people talking about sex and shit. School visit. Just a few weeks after, Sexyy Red made headlines again, and that time it was after reportedly getting kicked out of a school in her hometown of St. Louis for smelling like marijuana. She later reacted in a very angry way after the school actually turned her away and essentially told her, "Hey, you can't be here because you smell like Mary J." And Sexyy Red was saying that she just wanted to speak to the kids.
So this school put me, I came up here, got you, trying to talk to the kids, get them the word of that, they gonna put me up. Tell me I smell like weed, watch this. My job hard. Every day I'm fighting for my life. Every day. Trying to put me out from this school, I'm coming back around.
And the question a lot of people had was, wait a second, why are you showing up to a school smelling like weed, regardless of if you were invited or not? And that kind of thing definitely made it clear that Sexyy Red was very detached from basic accountability. Instead of leaving, she actually decided to turn up outside the school with a crowd of students.
St. Louis native known for her raunchy lyrics, making national headlines over a recent performance outside her rally. It was for kids. Well, national recording artist Sexyy Red, whose name is Janae Wary, drawing criticism tonight over her behavior and performance after a student rally Wednesday at Shayfit. The organization
Sexyy Red wasn't giving no fucks, nigga.
Despite being told not to be on the property. Obviously, that's the kind of thing any regular person would have faced real consequences for, but when you're famous, rich, and poppin', consequences don't always apply. Now, this pattern actually continued because after this came the 4C hair comments. Now, in a clip posted to Instagram, Sexyy Red actually showed off her straightened hair, and she mocked women with 4C hair. For anyone who doesn't know what 4C hair is, it's essentially the natural hair type that most black women have. And Sexyy Red, she posted this photo of herself and said, "You carpet hair, beanie, neck colors, could never." And then she obviously got backlash for this.
And I just hate the fact that we make fun of things that we cannot change. We cannot change hair texture. And it's sad because this is who's in the mainstream media talking like this. And a lot of people are growing up having her as a role model for whatever reason.
And they're going to start seeing carpet hair. It's already a search in TikTok is carpet hair. The hair texture that you have does not determine how beautiful you are. What your face looks like really doesn't determine how beautiful you are. It's your aura. It's your personality. That determines how beautiful you are.
And then when that backlash came, she responded in a very distasteful way. And she said, "I fuck with carpet hair." But we still call women that if they talk smack. Obviously not the smartest move because, you know, the majority of her fan base is actually made up of the same black women that she was shading. And also, it's like you're a black woman yourself. You have this hair type yourself naturally. And just because you strain that hair that one time, that doesn't really take away from the fact that you naturally have that hair type.
Yeah,
you get what I'm saying? So that's the kind of thing that kind of comes across as like,
but we don't know what the fuck they were saying to her before that. You know, they're talking shit
Sexyy Red's entire brand was always built on exaggerating the same negative stereotypes of black women that she herself insulted. But then we also have the viral tape.
But they talking shit about her, so she can't talk shit back.
Sexyy Red accidentally posted a private tape on her Instagram story. I'm sure you probably know what that private tape was, right?
Now, people said that you leaked your sex tape on purpose.
It was on Instagram, like a little short clip video. And then through the phone, and it got accidentally pressed like that.
She later claimed on an interview with The Breakfast Club that it wasn't intentional, but anyone with a functioning brain can tell that it was. The timing, the context, the way it boosted her visibility all point to this being part of the marketing strategy. Because remember, her biggest song, Pound Town, literally revolves around her body and sexuality, okay? So when the world suddenly gets visual evidence connected to those lyrics, what do you think happens?
It does, after that, after Pound Town, nigga, her music got trashed.
In today's industry.
You know what I'm saying? It really wasn't like,
but for any artist trying to connect their image to a specific idea or aesthetic. It's very profitable and it works. In this case, we have
like what happened to Gorilla? You know what I'm saying?
The core of that
Gorilla don't
and the situation,
down.
none of it was an accident. It was all strategy. This is how an artist gets branded, sold, and introduced to the public by the record labels. And like a lot of us know, the more extreme the image is, the more attention it draws. And the more attention it draws, the more money it makes from the people behind the scenes. But here's the most worrying part about all of this. A huge portion of her audience is made up of children, specifically young black girls who look up to her, imitate her, and see her as a representation of what confidence looks like. And so when those same girls watch a public figure leak her own tape and then pretend it was an accident, it sends a dangerous message that attention is worth more than dignity. When it comes to being a public figure, no matter how you look at it, there is a level of responsibility that comes with that. With great power comes great responsibility. And it's not about being perfect 24/7 or operating like a role model every second of the day, but at least being conscious of how your actions land and who they actually speak to.
You gotta fuck with the whole crash out like that. Crash out, but you get what I'm saying?
That kind of responsibility from her, at least based on how she moved up until that point. But that's exactly the point here. The industry knew that. They knew she wasn't gonna filter herself or self-correct or think about the impact that her negative actions are having on people, the world, and the youth. And in a way, that's what made her the perfect candidate for this experiment. Because before Sexyy Red was handpicked, listen to what I just said here, okay? Handpicked to be elevated to the spotlight, there's a very real process that happens behind the scenes. Personalities of this type don't just blow up by accident. Their image, their behavior,
usually be like by a motherfucking like a
analyzed
corporation.
and measured by the people who decide who gets pushed and who doesn't. And this explains something a lot of people have wondered about for years, which is, why do so many public figures suddenly explode in popularity, yet seem to completely lack a moral compass? Why do the most chaotic, reckless, or controversial artists get the biggest push? That's not by accident. How it works is this. Labels, investors, and media companies collectively look for what's profitable, not what's healthy, uplifting, or balanced. They look for personalities that can generate attention, even if that attention comes from dysfunction, because attention is currency. And someone who doesn't self-reflect or set boundaries is easier to brand, easier to manipulate, and easier to push into extreme directions. And during that evaluation process, a lot of questions get asked behind the scenes. Questions like, who can push the public's buttons the most? Who can trigger the strongest reactions? Who will go the furthest without questioning the impact? That's why I felt like Sexyy Red was being extra provocative during her blow-up period. It wasn't random. It wasn't accidental. It was very planned.
Yeah, you
it
think
was
that she was like
in a way that maximized shock, maximized
to
virality, and maximized profit. And despite all that dysfunction, it seemed like she just kept going up. Every controversy, every viral moment, instead of things slowing down,
I think once you get too deep into the shit, like I feel like her music,
and my theory has always been that there's of course a reason for that. See, I personally think that Sexyy Red was getting this push for one main reason: to promote a very specific image, a very negative one.
But I'm like,
because
if
in
you
a world
just
where
want to
media
like
has
listen to
always shaped
something
how
every
we
now
view
and then, or
people,
you just want to watch
especially
shit.
black people, Sexyy Red became a tool for the music industry to push a modern version of one of the oldest and most damaging stereotypes about black women. I'm talking about the Jezebel stereotype. Dating back to slavery, this stereotype painted black women as hypersexual, uncontrollable, and defined entirely by their bodies. It was a complete lie that was used to justify the exploitation and abuse of black women for generations, and somehow that same imagery is still being recycled today, just packaged with beats and marketing. And hip-hop has always been
going crazy. I ain't gonna
black voices. However,
I feel like
it has
Sexyy Red
been
is
hijacked
like,
to do the opposite. And Sexyy Red, whether she
when you from
realizes
the
or
hood,
not,
nigga,
became the face of that. Her entire brand, her lyrics, visuals, and even the way she's promoted, it all fed into that same narrative. That the only way a black woman can be seen, celebrated, or go viral is by being sexualized, loud, and reckless. And Red eventually became very successful. She's undoubtedly generated a whole lot of money for the music industry. And for a while, the experiment worked. But now things are starting to shift.
She must be freaked out. True.
A lot of you guys might have noticed how Sexyy Red isn't being talked about nearly as much as before. And there's a few reasons for that. Now let's take it back. Take it way back to how it all started. Before Sexyy Red took off, she was discovered by a Miami-based label and management company called Rebel Music back in 2021. They came across some of her early songs and decided to sign her. Her A&R executive stated that, once she got off the plane and I heard her voice, I knew she was a star.
Now at Whataburger.
Blow up and Gamma, a new media company, stepped in to handle her distribution. Now let's talk a little bit about Gamma, because this was the company behind her true rise. Now this company was founded by a Larry Jackson. Some of you guys in the music industry might know who this is. He actually spent 7 years as Apple Music's global creative director before leaving in 2022 to start Gamma, a company that claims to create, distribute, and market content focused on Black culture. And according to Larry Jackson himself, that focus on Black culture isn't just a slogan, it's the entire pitch. Because when Gamma was launched, it wasn't some small experimental startup. They actually came out the gate backed by $1 billion in financing. And the question is, where did they get that money from? We'll get to that in a second. And this money was apparently being put to work, particularly and acutely, on Black culture. So $1 billion dedicated specifically to Black culture. Interesting. Now, Larry Jackson is a very much recognized name in the music industry. Most people, whether it's managers, artists, or anyone else who actually works in the music industry, most times they know who he is, right? Billboard even named Larry Jackson the R&B and hip-hop executive of the year. They described him as someone who's able to bring things to life, with artists like Travis Scott praising the way he moves. So he's been getting a lot of cosigns from a lot of very prominent artists as well. And one of the first big moves the company Gamma that he started made was facilitating a deal where TikTok's 1 billion plus users got exclusive access to the entire Death Row catalog, which included Snoop Dogg's classic Doggy Style album and the late Tupac's All Eyes on Me as well. Now right here, Larry Jackson demonstrated exactly the kind of pull he and his company Gamma actually has and what it's apparently built to do. Use massive capital, massive access, and massive cultural leverage to shape what the general public, but especially Black audiences, consume and how they consume it. Now when you understand that, Sexyy Red's rise starts looking a lot less organic and a lot more like a calculated extension of that mission. Now alongside Larry Jackson, we also have Ike Yusuf, Gamma's president. Now Ike previously worked at Interscope Records as a CFO, Chief Financial Officer.
He holds
degrees in business, economics, and accounting. So his background is strictly corporate, not creative. Together, these two essentially built Gamma to be a hybrid between a label and a media powerhouse. And Sexyy Red quickly became one of their biggest test cases, the face of a very calculated experiment that combined viral marketing, controversy, and cultural packaging under the banner of representation. But here's where things get interesting. The largest investor in Gamma isn't someone from the culture at all. It's Todd Boehly, a 52-year-old American businessman of German heritage who's worth over $8 billion. So now it actually starts to make sense where they got that initial billion from, right? So the main investor behind a company that claims to focus on Black culture is a white billionaire who also happens to co-own Los Angeles Dodgers and Chelsea Football Club. And, that's kind of where the dots start to connect. Because one of the biggest questions people had when Sexyy Red started popping up everywhere was how? Like, how is all this possible? How does someone with that kind of image suddenly get this massive push from every direction? Well, now it should make sense to you. When you realize that the machine behind Sexyy Red included a billionaire investor worth nearly $9 billion, a major media company with deep Apple Music ties, and a label infrastructure designed to amplify controversy, it starts painting a very clear picture. And this is something Candace Owens actually spoke about some time back as well.
Gamma has a lot of power. I'll tell you why Gamma has a lot of power. Because the two individuals that started Gamma, one of them came out of Apple. His name is Larry Jackson. And the second one of them came from Interscope Records. He has a ton of clout in the record community, the music community industry, so to speak. And his name is Ike Yusuf. Larry Jackson, who I mentioned before, is Black. And he is the person that I am more interested in.
For anyone who doesn't recognize the face or name, Candace Owens is an American political commentator and author, and a self-labeled conservative activist. Now, she's covered a lot of these same connections, pointing out how the entertainment industry profits off of promoting chaos, dysfunction, and over-sexualization, especially when it comes to Black artists. Now, interestingly enough, this connects to something rapper Ice Cube talked about on Bill Maher's podcast. Ice Cube spoke about the same kind of manipulation, which is what he called social engineering, where record labels act like gatekeepers, and he said that they essentially don't tell artists exactly what to say, but they make sure that the most destructive messages are the ones that get pushed to the top.
The records that come out are really geared to push people towards that prison industry. But they didn't make you write those lyrics. It's not about making somebody write the lyrics. It's about being there as guardrails to make sure certain songs make it through and certain songs don't.
And this is an idea we've explored conversationally over time, so it's nothing new, right? Now, Ice Cube was essentially saying, if you follow the money, you'll start noticing how the same people who own major record labels also have ownership stakes in private prisons. Now, that's another conversation I'll explore in depth in another video.
Yeah, you can have a whole fucking 2-3 hours about how they doing that.
The underlying message underneath is very clear. The industry profits off of chaos, dysfunction, and division. And when you look at what gets the biggest push, the artists who glorify violence, crime, or hypersexuality, it starts to make a lot of sense, right? And this is how a lot of these experiments start. Now, for Sexyy Red, I think they decided to push the boundaries even further, especially when it comes to the raunchiness and shock value. Because here's the thing. We live in a time where, let's just say that people are extremely desensitized in all types of ways. Nothing surprises anyone
when I was a kid, man, I seen so much crazy ass shit.
Like to grab the attention of the public, you almost have to go to the extreme. You have to be louder, you have to be wilder, you have to be more provocative than the last person, or you'll get drowned out in the noise. And Sexyy Red became the perfect vessel for that strategy. Because one thing about the public is that we react to extremes. If you show us something that feels outrageous, controversial, or wild enough, it grabs our attention instantly. And in an experiment where attention equals profit, the industry keeps testing how far they can go. They take these sample sizes of artists, amplify the most polarizing ones, and study what happens next, how people react, how the internet responds, how the controversy spreads.
That's what I said, man. Once you dig into it, you'll see like it's a whole bunch of fuck shit behind it. But if you just like listen to it or just like listen watching it,
in this case right here. Sexyy Red
you ain't gonna get that much out of it. But the moment you start digging into that shit, nigga, it's gonna be a whole bunch of crazy shit.
For explicitness, for chaos, all while disguising it as authenticity.
But she got that bag and shit.
Now, what's happening right now with Sexyy Red, though, because she's obviously not getting the same marketing push that she was. Before we even get to Sexyy Red, we got to look at what's been happening in rap overall. Now, a few days ago, we talked about that Billboard report, the one showing that for the first time since the 90s, there wasn't a single rap song in the Hot 100's top 40. Rap's market share has been slipping for years. This is something a lot of people know, right? Labels aren't investing in hip-hop like they used to. And a lot of the newer sounds just aren't connecting with the public anymore. Meanwhile, country, Latin, Afrobeats, and pop are dominating. So the industry has shifted towards safe artists with guaranteed returns.
When everybody in your industry genre dying or going to jail, shit, when you stick, like,
not just
shit,
Sexyy
it can't,
now for Sexyy Red,
shit gonna be
she's
crazy.
undoubtedly an artist who's fueled by antics.
These motherfuckers, other artists in different genres and shit, they be on pussy foot and shit. They pussies.
Where the label throws everything at them to create momentum, and it works at first. It always does. But later on, things start to slow down because antics have an expiration date. That's just how it is. There's also a growing level of fatigue towards these characters who get pushed nonstop, not just in the music industry, but just in social media in general. And the reason for this fatigue, in my opinion, is because people today are way more conscious, way more self-aware, way more spiritually tuned in than they were in the past. Because here's the thing, I'm sure you know this, right? We're living in a time where there's so many things that are attacking our attention, our energy, and our peace. So people can feel when something is forced and when something is spiritually empty. Sexyy Red went through that period where she was being prioritized, where the machine was fully behind her, pushing her into every corner of the culture and industry.
I think that she just kept it real.
Now.
You know what I'm saying? Like, we all know there's some fuck shit behind it. And some goofy ass shit. But I think she just kept it real for that moment.
The same way they did before. And once the intensity of the reactions start to fade, what incentive does the industry have to keep pushing you and investing all this money into you? None. And there's also something to be said about the demographic that Sexyy Red was being marketed towards, which was primarily black women. And based on the responses I've seen online, a lot of
nothing wrong with trying to get up the pussy.
Starting to wake up to what's really going on. I feel like that was in a judgmental way, but in
a good goal, like
kind of way. Because once something reaches a certain level of exaggeration or dysfunction or straight up cartoonish behavior, people eventually recognize it for what it is. Now, personally, I think that all those black women should have realized, when she made those 4 CR comments, that's what we call internalized hatred, okay? And so I think that should have been the moment where they woke up and they realized, like, damn, she's straight up mocking herself and she's mocking us, right? Now, on top of that, we also know that Sexyy Red's rise was built almost entirely on hype. And when something is built on hype, it fades the moment people take a step back and actually look and what they're consuming.
Nigga,
when you change the way you look at things, the things you're looking
she
at
worked as a
actually
CEO,
start
nigga,
to
she
change.
getting hit.
And that's kind of when people start to see through the hype and the facade. And I think that's what happened with Sexyy Red. I also don't think that people are as quick to play this kind of music around their children anymore, especially after everything, people have seen from Sexyy Red, but also too considering everything that's happening in the world right now. Because the truth is, there's a lot of forces operating through social media today, pushing certain ideas, certain behaviors, and planting certain messages in the minds of the youth. Not in some kind of like conspiracy way, but I'm saying in a very algorithm / attention type way.
It's not
the
her
stuff
fault,
that spreads the fastest is usually the stuff that's
what
loudest,
she wanted to do
wildest,
and
and most
portray, but
chaotic,
at the end of the day,
and most dysfunctional.
people will
and when that
manipulate
becomes
that
the
and use
dominant
that.
influence in certain spaces, parents and young people themselves start paying attention.
Yeah.
And once you recognize the pattern,
so they should have been looking at Lil Nas X goofy ass, and that motherfucker, he deserved to get on some goofy ass cancellation shit. That
next
motherfucker was
generation.
goofy.
And that shift right there matters. Because when the core audience becomes more intentional, more protective, and more aware, the entire foundation of that experiment starts to fall apart. Now look, I think Sexyy Red is going to continue being successful to some extent because she's got a fan base.
She doesn't need a hot song.
She's built a name for herself.
She needs a song.
At this point, it's obvious that the experiment isn't hitting the way it used to.
Yeah, it's not hitting because she ain't blowing up no more.
You tell me, has the experiment failed or not? If you made it this far,
I think it did its job. What the whole goal was at that time.
You obviously enjoyed this video, okay? I'm really curious to hear what you guys have to say about this entire conversation around Sexyy Red. You guys let me know in the comment section below, and I'll catch you guys on in the next video. Peace. I'm out.
You never know. Shout out to Sage. This Ice Spice is boring, and that's why she's successful. Man, y'all see that Ice Spice got that new song, Big Guy, Big Pants. Hey, SpongeBob shit. I feel like, man, she cooking, man. I do feel like she is low-key kind of boring, but I think that's like he said, that is what getting her lit because, like, she got the good songs. I guess it's the songs speak for itself.
Ice Spice is the future of everything. Yes, I'm being serious,
and
no,
man.
I'm not a fan of hers.
That's like she Plant 3, though. Let's talk about it.
SpongeBob, Big Guy, Pants Okay. That's the chorus of Ice Spice's song Big Guy from the new SpongeBob movie released
and let's talk about it. I think it's colorism.
You might have seen the memes of the song all over TikTok and the
True.
conflicting reactions it's been getting from people. On one hand, to many, the song is just another example of the supposed decline of talent and substance in the music industry. On the other hand, it still somehow works due to its bouncy, drill-inspired beat and sensory video-like imagery.
Like I said.
But beyond the surface-level memeability of the song, there's also a deeper conversation forming around it. There has been a genuine concern with the sexualization of a child's film, how Ice Spice chose to dress at the premiere, but also how, to many people, this song is just unbearably annoying, cringe, and far too simplistic to make any sense. But none of this is also new. Ever since the viral success of Munch back in 2022, Ice Spice has become known for her simplistic lyrics, monotone delivery, and stoic, nonchalant personality. These traits have led some to wonder how a person who is so boring even got famous in the first place. I mean, aren't famous people supposed to be highly emotive and charismatic? Well, what if I told you that everyone is wrong and that Ice Spice isn't successful despite being nonchalant and simplistic, but because of it, and that the majority of young people today are also unknowingly acting in the same nonchalant, fear of showing any emotion or personality way? In other words, Ice Spice just might be one of the best symbols of our current time, showing how a generation growing up on negativity-driven social media and the fear of mass judgment and cringe culture that comes along with it is causing young people to act obsessively stoic to the point of seeming boring or without any real personality. In today's video, I want to explain how Ice Spice shows us the future of emotional expression, celebrity personas, and how the more stoic and mysterious someone acts, the more the audience can project an idealized image onto them, which increases appeal, not diminishes it. We will dive deep into Ice Spice's childhood and early career, how social media affects people's fear of judgment and promotes nonchalant culture, how capitalism encourages simplicity over nuance for wider appeal, how controversy and sexualization have become the most efficient business model, and how this affects all of us, whether we critique it or not.
Let's get straight through it.
Sexyy Gaston was born on January 1st, 2000 in the Bronx, New York, and was raised in the Fordham Road neighborhood. She is the oldest of 6 children, having 3 younger sisters and 2 brothers. Her father, Joseph Gaston, is a former underground rapper and is African American, while her mother is Dominican.
Okay.
Ice Spice has said that her father's early rap career influenced her interest in music, and that some of her earliest memories were in the studio with him. I remember being in the studio with him. I was a toddler, probably, and I remember little flashes. Of course, not every detail, but small things like that being shown to you at such a young age make an impression on you. Subconsciously, I ended up becoming an artist because I saw my father be one first. When Ice Spice was 7 years old, she began writing poetry and early lyrics in elementary school. She has said that some of her biggest inspirations were Lil Kim and Nicki Minaj, but because she grew up around her father, she also listened to Wu-Tang Clan and Jay-Z. In the 4th grade, rapper French Montana would visit her school, and Ice would later see Nicki Minaj in public, which had a lasting impact on her. When I saw Nicki Minaj, I was so mesmerized. She's the first female rapper that I seen, and ever since then, I was kinda set on what I wanted to be. While in high school, Ice Spice would continue writing raps using her Notes app and different hip-hop instrumentals from YouTube. She would settle on the name Ice Spice simply because she needed a Finsta username and wanted something that rhymed with the shortened version of her real name, Isis, and Spice came to mind first. I chose Ice Spice because it literally rhymes. I was 14 years old coming up with like a Finsta name, and I was like, what rhymes with ice? Spice. Plus, I love spicy food too. I put hot sauce on everything. When Ice Spice was 17, she attended SUNY at Purchase, where she played back row on the school's volleyball team and studied communications. Ice Spice would eventually drop out of SUNY Purchase around her sophomore year, in part due to the long commute and because she felt, quote, I was in the wrong place.
Stop playing with them, Riot.
Ice Spice would begin officially rapping in 2020 after meeting Riot USA, who was also attending Purchase. Riot produced her debut song, Bully Freestyle, released in March 2021 after a video of Ice Spice doing the Bust It Challenge went viral on Twitter. On August 10th, 2022, Ice Spice released her song, Feeling You, with the music video distributed by World Star Hip Hop as the lead single from her then untitled debut EP, Like.
Please demonstrate how you pronounce the name of the EP.
You gotta roll your eyes a little bit with it. It's like...
The song gained popularity after getting support from Drake, who played it on his Sirius XM radio station, Sound 42. It then went viral on Twitter and TikTok and charted on Billboard's Hot R&B hip-hop songs and bubbling under Hot 100 charts. In September 2022, Ice Spice appeared as a featured artist on the song One Time by Be Love. Later that month, she signed a record deal with 10K Projects and Capitol Records. On October 28th, she released the single Bikini Bottom, and the rest is basically history. Ice Spice would become known for her unique orange hairstyle and curls, twerking, monotone delivery, and such simplistic lyrics that she became easily memed, which further boosted her exploding popularity.
Do you remember Squishmallow Happy Meals?
I remember just how much people hated Ice Spice's original hair, with so many saying that she looked like Annie or a boy.
I like a fucking boy. Give me a sec. Okay.
But on the contrary, I actually think it's just another example of hair theory and how the more you have an outstanding visual feature or brand, the more likely you are to become successful. For those who don't know, hair theory, when applied to celebrities, is the idea that artists don't really blow up until they develop a recognizable or unique hairstyle. But as I said earlier, it's not really specifically the hair that matters. It's more about developing a recognizable feature and getting a better brand.
I think it's the personality.
With rapid fame also comes backlash, and Ice Spice was no exception. People lambasted her lyrics and claimed she had no talent, was only famous for her body, and that after the virality of Munch died down, she would fade away and forever be known as nothing more than a one-hit wonder.
And I'm bad like the Barbie. I'm a doll, but I still want to party.
But as we all know, that never happened, and she would continue to churn out viral tracks and collabs with some of the biggest artists in the industry, like Nicki Minaj and Pink Panthers. There was also the beef with fellow rapper and friend Cleo Trappa in 2024, where Cleo accused Ice of not properly accommodating her for the tour, which led to a back-and-forth feud and allegations of colorism, fake friends, fat shaming, and image control.
Bitch, you not gonna tell the people how we was at an Italian restaurant and you ate so much food, you fuck vacuum that the server was like, where did the food go?
Damn.
Like, stop it right now. You talking about some,
Motherfucker call that
let
bitch a
me to the back
vacuum.
of her room. Her
Big
tour bus, she
nigga.
had this big ass room. Bitch, can I play with my one time?
Ooh,
in
shit.
my bed one time?
Damn.
Like, damn, you want to sleep in my bed every day? That's crazy to me.
Ice Spice's virality and social media presence also showed us the increasing spontaneity of the music industry and how, in the 2020s, an artist's follower count, like count, and online name recognition are just as important, if not more than, their talent, lyrical depth, or how long they've been in the game. Remember, Ice Spice was only rapping for barely 2 years when Munch blew up, and she still experienced one of the fastest come-ups we've seen to date. But Ice Spice's rapid rise represented more than just the unpredictability of fame in the 2020s. Her simple lyrics, while being hated by many, are actually one of her biggest strengths. What I mean by this is that she sort of represents a cultural fill-in-the-blank, where she uses minimalist phrases and lyrics which can then be filled in by the public in the form of viral memes. Think of her ad-libs, Gra and Like, and how the simpler the delivery, the more we can impose our own meaning, and again, fill in the blank, which makes her seem more relatable and memeable, increasing her fame and success. In some ways, we have sunk so far into postmodern irony that it's almost like the line between joking and sincerity is completely gone, and that's why when we look at society from politics to entertainment, the more memeable you are, the more popular you tend to become, which would usually seem counterintuitive because what do you mean the more people laugh at you and think you're a joke, the more successful you now become? Commands. This is also why we would see so many of her lyrics and songs talk about poop and farting, because her marketing team knew a lot of her appeal was being memeable, and so they leaned further into it. But as we all know, it kind of backfired, because what the fuck do you mean that this was a serious song off her first album? Think you the shit, bitch? You're not even the fuck. It doesn't really make sense, and it's another reason why those who don't like Ice Spice didn't get how someone who is a monotone meme keeps on winning. But again, I think it's all actually completely logical with added context, and brings us to what I call the rise of nonchalant culture and the blank slate celebrity. Nonchalant is probably a word you have seen said an annoying amount of times online. So many times, in fact, it has become memed into oblivion to the point that many don't take it seriously. Nonchalant simply means feeling or appearing casually calm and relaxed, not displaying anxiety, interest, or enthusiasm, and it first became huge in the manosphere, where many straight men struggling with their identity and sense of masculinity began to hyperfixate on stoicism and the belief that being a real man means avoiding any emotion because they think it's feminine and weak. But the concept of being nonchalant didn't just affect men, and also began to spread to all genders and appropriations. Gender appropriations and the pronouns. And especially began to influence Gen Alpha and younger Gen Z. Imagine an entire generation of people not really knowing a world of genuine in-person relationship building, but only the one of social media artificiality, where everything you see falls into two categories: perfectly curated feeds showing off people with perfect lives, faces, and bodies, and constant negativity and controversy, where anything and everything is labeled cringe or corny. This is obviously an annoying dynamic we have all come to know by now, but now imagine being raised in it, not really knowing a world without it, where your brain hasn't really developed yet, and where your perception of society and yourself is still being formed. I mean, older Gen Z and millennials partly grew up with social media, but we also knew a world without it, especially a world when it wasn't so toxic, or when the algorithms were built on rage baiting. I think that for many kids, teens, and young adults today who grew up after algorithms switched to division and controversy, and who never really lived in a world where their screen time wasn't 6 to 10 hours a day, they have internalized the outrage-farming world social media creates as reality. While scrolling, they see people being flamed and memed for anything they do, then the perfect lives of some nepo baby, daddy-funded influencer. Then some controversy and cancellations, with numerous headlines and political catastrophe sprinkled in between.
That is what these kids are being raised on, while spending more time alone than every previous generation, which also means they aren't really developing personalities or social skills in a normal or healthy way.
This is my 11th year as a professor, and what I've noticed, in a very unsettling way, is that our students, they are more and more self-conscious of trying. There's a kind of surveillance culture around social media, and they would say, I want to be a poet, I want to be a good writer, but it's a bit cringe, right? This cringe culture is, I don't want to be perceived as trying and having an effortful attempt at my dreams. And so I think they are absolutely scared of judgment. And so in fact, they perform cynicism, because cynicism can be misread, as it often is, as intelligence. You're disaffected, you're too cool, you've seen it all. And so they pull back. But in fact, they are deeply hungry for sincere, earnest effort. They often do it privately. They don't want to admit to each other that they're actually trying really hard to do what they want to do. But amongst their peers, I think sincerity is something we deeply hunger for, particularly young people, but we are embarrassed when sincerity is in the room.
This is where nonchalant culture comes in again. If you feel that any little thing you do can always be recorded by some classmate or bystander, which can then be memeified and cause you to be flamed and socially shunned by millions, you naturally develop a phobia of being cringe and will begin policing your personality until you settle into something that is more nonchalant or stoic. In other words, for a lot of young people today, this isn't really a choice as much as it is the logical conclusion to the dystopian environment they are being raised in. It is like social media is creating a culture of constant surveillance in the fear of social exile. When you get entire generations being raised this way, you can then understand why this audience would begin to prefer celebrities that mirror this new behavior and ideology. This is why I say Ice Spice is not a fluke, not someone who got famous by accident or someone who shouldn't be famous, but is instead perfectly reflective of the social environment we all now inhabit. If you have seen any Ice Spice live streams or interviews, you would see this behavior in full effect. Commenters consistently point out that Ice Spice shows barely any emotion or reaction to what's going on, and that she even seems boring or like she doesn't have a personality. I think the way she acts does two really important things. First, by having a more stoic, minimalist personality, it can paradoxically make her seem more relatable, especially to a younger audience. What I mean by this is that I've seen a lot of people say Ice Spice is so emotionless and non-reactive in social settings that it almost feels awkward and like she doesn't want to be there. This can feel more relatable due to how younger people often are more awkward and less confident in certain situations. On the other hand, I think it also goes a bit deeper. A lot of people today don't understand that there is a very specific formula to crafting a megastar. Yes, you obviously need decades in the business, vocal and performing talent, and an iconic image, but another huge component is inaccessibility. Social media has completely altered the social dynamic with celebrities, and when they become too exposed, too relatable, too accessible, too nuanced, the illusion of enviable perfection that fame relies on collapses. This is why we see some of the biggest or most unique stars today staying off social media or rarely doing interviews. It's because they know a huge part of their appeal is the mystique of fame and the way it allows fans to fabricate an idealized perception of them. Like, yes, social media has created a new type of famous person altogether, the overexposed, relatable, just like everyone else influencer, but that type of brand also collapses any real chance of a mythologized, godlike, untouchable image to form. There is no mystery or space left for us to project a fantasy onto. And I'm not saying Ice Spice is some untouchable megastar, but more that the way she opts out of emotional nuance and having a uniquely out there personality ironically makes her more popular, not less. And yes, I know that a lot of people watching right now might think I'm giving Ice Spice a bit more credit than she deserves. Her first studio album, Y2K, did okay on the Billboard 200 chart, reaching number 18, but the reviews were mixed, with many critics noting the lyrics and beats were too simplistic and repetitive. I'm not saying that Ice Spice is destined to take off to legendary status or that she's the biggest rapper out at the moment, just that I think her template is the future, and that simplicity, less nuance, less emotion and repetition are where we
her
are
close
headed.
friends know who the fuck she is.
But coming back to
her close friends know
I've
who the
talked
fuck
about
she
this
is.
concept
You know what I'm
multiple
saying?
times in my videos on why I believe the age of the
I mean,
mega
if you want
godlike
to give out your
celebrity is
personality,
over,
who you
and
are,
how
you
every
can.
new artist today will
But
probably
shit,
follow the social media model
it
and
what it is.
overexpose themselves in the hopes of likes, virality, and relatability.
To me, I
While
don't
Ice
give a
Spice
fuck.
most
It is my
definitely uses
personality.
social
I talk.
media and
Yeah, I
also
just do what I do.
overexposes herself, her
I don't care if
nonchalant,
niggas
chill
fuck with it or not.
behavior
Fuck the niggas.
still translates to mystery and a lack of nuance, which allows the audience to fill in the blanks and project an idealized persona onto her. In some ways, we can also see this same nonchalant concept with someone like Pink Pantheress. We see her stripped down concerts and choreography, as well as a less reactive personality. Her lyrics are often simplistic, repetitive, and overlaid with minimalist beats. Obviously, Pink Pantheress is heavily inspired by the early 2000s and is trying to recreate that look, which also influenced a lot of her aesthetic and music choices, but I think my point still stands. We can also see this nonchalant behavior with someone like rapper Central C, who is a bit different because he is a man, and men are already often expected to be stoic and emotionless, but I still find this trend interesting. When our society has become so built around overexposure and going to any lengths necessary to get attention, and when social media just endlessly flames people for being normal human beings, being nonchalant and minimalist is becoming a way to not just avoid being cringe, but can also become refreshing and unique. I've also talked about this in my previous video on why the world appears to be losing color and why everything seems so monochromatic, and how, due to our endless consumption of media and the overwhelming amount of complexity that comes with it, minimalism and less complex colors or visual stimuli can be more preferred. It all has to do with how overwhelmed we all feel and how religiously obsessing over aesthetics or interior design, self-help or wellness, or even your public image and persona can help give us a sense of control and order in a world that feels increasingly chaotic. So, in some ways, this is a trend that doesn't just apply to Ice Spice, Pink Pantheress, or artist personas, but is reflective of something bigger going on in our collective culture at large, and how our chaotic technology is altering everything and causing us to react by going the opposite direction for a sense of security and order, which can be comforting. But what if being nonchalant wasn't just an individual choice or something that some people just happen to be? It was more top-down than we previously thought. What I mean by this is that I think a lot of what Ice Spice does could just be the marketing team behind her. And again, like everything, just leads back to capitalism. We have seen the same stripping of everything down to create a generic, standardized version for profit play out over and over. Take an original idea, style, story, music genre, whatever it is, and water it down, smooth out the edges, and create something that can be easily reproducible for mass appeal and profit. Songs have become shorter and shorter to increase replay value and streams. Movie scenes have gotten quicker to keep our attention. News segments cut to 30-second sound bites to keep us engaged, all in response to something called the attention economy. The attention economy is a concept developed in the mid-20th century. Predicted that as advertisement-based profit models took over and as media creation exponentially grew in size, attention would become the most valuable commodity and everything in society would react to it. In other words, an endless amount of information and a limited attention span incentivize media to be as outrageous as possible to stand out or as short and simple so you can pay attention. When you factor in the current capitalist model we also have at the moment, neoliberal capitalism, it all makes even more sense. The neoliberal model upholds a market-led approach to everything in society, meaning lower market regulation and shareholder-driven profit styles, which seek to eliminate risk-taking and promote following a path of least resistance to profit generation. Put differently, if you have to make a million shitty movie remakes no one asked for because the original film 50 years ago was so successful, then so be it. It means shortening songs and simplifying lyrics to appeal to as many people as possible because nuance can be alienating. It means modeling newer artists on previous successes because it's less risky for the executive. It means pushing subscriptions instead of actually owning things because it's an easier way to make money versus paying once and being done. Like I have said a million times before,
You
this
stop
profit model is
focusing on the
why,
music and just focus on
when
how
looking at our society, and especially at social media, it seems like there are no rules, morals, or decency
like
anymore
Lemons.
except the goal of
like
making money.
Lemons.
Doesn't matter what you have to except the goal of making money. Doesn't matter what you have to do, what you have to water down, or who you have to exploit, including yourself, to achieve it. This brings us to the controversy surrounding the new SpongeBob movie and Ice Spice's Big Guy soundtrack. On November 14th, 2025, Ice Spice would release the track Big Guy and an accompanying music video for the song, and the reactions were mixed, to say the least. Many people pointed out how the lyrics felt so simplistic they were nonsensical, but that the beat and music video were still good and catchy. Others complained, saying Ice Spice was a bad fit for a children's movie, even though she didn't twerk or do anything inappropriate in the video. However, some parts of the music video would still be critiqued, including the beginning, with SpongeBob saying he's a big guy now, and the tape measurer rising in a way that feels suspiciously innuendo-like. I'm not saying I noticed anything at first, but I don't know. I did see a lot of people commenting about it, and it does kind of feel at times like it is referencing something else. Then there was this billboard spotted in Southern California, which is clearly inappropriate for a child's movie. And I don't know, it kind of does reinforce the theory that the song isn't really about SpongeBob's height, but about something else. Then there was what Ice Spice wore to the premiere of the film, and how a lot of people felt it was obviously inappropriate for a children's movie. All I'm gonna say is that I like Ice Spice. I like the Big Guy song. I think it works and is fun. And I think Ice Spice's outfit was actually cunty, but I also do see what's going on here, and I do believe a lot of the backlash is understandable, but I also think a lot of people are forgetting who to really blame. I don't think this is an Ice Spice issue as much as it is a larger structural capitalist one that people conveniently ignore. What I mean by this is that we live in a rage-bait world. Companies, corporations, studio executives, and advertising directors know what they are doing. And no, it's not that they are trying to sexualize the youth. They are deliberately stirring the pot and creating controversy wherever they can because it does well on social media, gives them free exposure, and then causes people to go see the film to see what it's all about, which, ding, 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 generates easy profit. We saw this same thing with The Little Mermaid casting and Wicked. Yeah, it's annoying we keep getting remakes, and yeah, it can be aggravating to people who obsess over casting accuracy, but at the end of the day, social media controversy translates into easy sales. This is like the profit model we have been living in for the last 2 decades. Controversy sells, and it's why we saw Doja Cat, Lil Nas X, and even Sam Smith lean into shock value and devil imagery a few years back because they knew it would generate controversy and increase sales. Yeah, they might have alienated a huge portion of their fan bases by going a bit too far, but in the short term, they got a lot of clicks and attention, and the neoliberal model only cares about short-term profit, not long-term stability. That's all we are really seeing with the SpongeBob movie and Ice Spice, and I think it's fine to have an issue with it, but let's look at the actual source of the problem here and not blame the person who is only a tiny cog in a massive machine. What ties everything we have talked about in this video together, the rise of nonchalant culture, the fear of being perceived as cringe due to negativity-based algorithms, the pursuit of controversy in modern advertising, the stripping down of culture in media to the lowest common denominator, is that our current economic system as a whole creates, sustains, and perpetuates it all. This is all much, much bigger than a single artist, movie, or billboard. If you want to have a problem with artists today being so sexualized, songs being so short, lyrics being so dumbed down, that's fine. But let's look at where it all stems from if we actually want to do something about it. But let me know what you guys think. Do you like Ice Spice or nonchalant culture?
I mean, I feel like
do you think she was a good fit for the SpongeBob movie? Let me know what you think, and I hope you all enjoyed this video.
Robot simplistic shit, we'd be good. And that's for Sexyy Red already give out personality, you know what I'm saying? But hey, that's pretty lit.
Alright, we back. So yeah, like I said, man, I think the only thing that's going missing on with Sexyy Red, man, because I seen some shit to where she got into some beef with Finesse 2 times. You know, I don't know what it is. Man, Finesse getting beef with anybody. At this point, this nigga get into a beef with a fucking a paralyzed dog or some shit. You know what I'm saying? Like goofy shit. But I feel like, man, Sexyy Red, man, she got the chances, and it kind of does look kind of bad because, like, bro, you have everybody. You had all the artists. You done song with everybody, all the greats. You done song with Kodak. You did song with everybody. I gotta tell y'all, after that Gucci third leg situation, man, she just disappeared, man. That Gucci third leg situation really went deep. Pause. No, not for real. no, that's no pause. But Crip, Ice Spice, she coming out with new shit. She looking lit. Hey, I hope they both turn the fuck up, get the shit turned. And hey, like I said, I support the female raps. They lit. Get Glorilla, get back out here. Make sure y'all like, subscribe. And me out this bitch hood. Northside, big Crip in the game. Northside shit.
Hey, Dad, you know, dog, when we link up, dog, this shit be legendary. You know this instrumental, you the engineer on it, so Kodak everywhere.